Telephone fraud has become an increasingly serious social issue, impacting individuals across different demographics. Generally, telephone scams involve fraudulent behaviors through phone calls, texts, and online platforms with the intent of obtaining victims' property. As communication technologies have advanced, such scams have risen notably in Hong Kong. Statistics indicate that Hong Kong witnessed a 60% year-on-year increase in reported phone scams during the first 7 months of the 2022. Beyond the statistics are real people, individuals who have been deceived of their savings or personal details. This involves investigating the vulnerabilities and experiences of those such as college students with limited life experience, socially isolated elders, or victims facing undue criticism in media portrayals. Examining this issue from the perspective of varied target groups can provide deeper insights into addressing their specific needs and vulnerabilities to such scams.
又有人中招墮入騙局啦！今次係一個住喺港島山頂獨立屋嘅90歲退休婆婆。婆婆舊年接到聲稱內地公安嘅電話，話懷疑佢嘅身份俾人盜用，涉及內地一單嚴重案件，叫佢將銀行存款轉帳到指定戶口，用嚟查證係咪涉及黑錢，又應承喺今年5月還返俾佢。
The case began at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, where the suspects in the 250 million fraud came from. However, the fact is that students are seldom featured as the perpetrators of the fraud in media news reports. In local news reports on crime, university students, especially overseas students, are the easy victims of phone scams. In the case of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, students are not only reported as fraudsters, but also as victims in the news. Looking at the two news stories, one can see that the victims reported in both stories are women. As a matter of fact, when we mention telephone scams, the first group of victims that comes to mind tends to be the elderly, women, students, and the rich group, as we mentioned in the content of the two news stories. However, this stereotype is not coincidence, but the result of the selective and biased reporting of cases in media news. Heavy exposure to the media can lead individuals to develop an illusory perception of reality. The persuasive and repetitive nature of media coverage tends to create a misperception of misinterpretation by viewers that deviates from the truth. According to this theory, people who watch a lot of television or are exposed to a lot of news coverage may develop a picture of reality that does not correspond to real life. So how does the media form a stereotype of the telephone scam victim population through its reporting, and does its reporting match reality? Let's take the female victim group as an example. When we search the news gathering database for fraud offenses in the last 3 months, we can see that the number of media reports of women as victims is far greater than that of men. And is this true of the real data situation? It can be seen that in reality, the number of male victims is even twice as high as the number of female victims, which is significantly different from the situation reported by the news media. While students fit into the media's constructed victim population, the reporting bias that the rich are more likely to be victimized is again at variance with the reality. Although it is always said that violent crime news is more likely to attract attention, but the highest amount of money ever cheated on a 90-year-old woman is enough to be ridiculous. However, not all crime victims receive equal coverage from the media. Resources are typically allocated to those who fit the model of the ideal victims, individuals who victimized embody extreme vulnerability, innocence, defenselessness, and evoke sympathy, thus granting them full and legitimate victim status. Elderly women often fall into this category. In Western one search for the keyword scammed, 60% of the 72 related stories in the past 6 months focus on elderly victims, with half of those specifically highlighting elderly women as the targets, compared to only one story featuring an elderly woman. However, when the elderly women live in the big luxury villas in Central, new conflicts emerge. The ideal victim begins to fall from the top of victimization hierarchy. It is not because these women are victims of a marginalized group. Rather, as the members of the upper class, they deviate from the image of a vulnerable group that elicits sympathy and challenges the legitimacy of their victim status. At the opposite end of the spectrum, victims who are denied legitimate victim status are easily perceived by viewers as undeserving victims. When a significant amount of money is defrayed from an elderly person, how does the news coverage change for the viewers? In order to understand the audience's interpretation of the event, we found some comments on social media about the news, and the sense of the deprivation brought about the huge amount of money was indeed present. Discussion began to focus on the victims' family situations and personal information, with much blame directed at the victims. Indeed, when we traveled all the way to the residential area on the hill in the central, it took a lot of effort just to get there. It is hard to relate the scene in front of you to the destination of the doctor. I wonder what was going through the mind of the suspect of the PolyU student when he came here. So there is this student from the PolyU who lives in the Ting Shui Wei. It's interesting how the media has been creating a stereotype about Ting Shui Wei, portraying it as a poor area with a high crime rate. Similarly, Hong Kong has a relative high poverty rate in the Wangdaxing district. In the news, we noticed that there were 12 reports about the telephone fraud case in Wangdaxing during a 3-month period, while the total number of fraud cases in Hong Kong is around 18000. Huangdaxian District Police Station stated that there were only 104 fraud cases in the first half of the year. Research has shown that poverty and inequality in Hong Kong can contribute to an increase in crime rates. In 2022, among the 80 districts, Huangdaxian ranked fourth from the bottom in terms of per capita income. It is not the poorest district, but the media tends to focus on it and create a stereotype of Huangdaxian as a crime-ridden, impoverished area. The media plays a significant role in shaping public perception, and sometimes it distorts the reality. By magnifying news about Huangdaxian, media reinforce the stereotype and create a perception that the district is prone to crime. This is linked to the public perception of Huangdaxian as a poor area, even though the actual data might not be as alarming. According to a theory of fear of crime, the media often shapes misleading views about dangerous places. They take advantage of the cultural proximity to make telephone fraud incidents seem relevant to every Hong Kong citizen. So the Hong Kong media is intentionally portraying Huang Daxian as a scary area full of fraud and crime, even though the actual data does not support such a claim. It's unfortunate how the media shapes this stereotype about the district. From the exit of the Kai Tak MTR station, after passing through the large lawn of the station park, we can see the police building. In this news report just released last week, we can see that the police station has played an important role in combating the growing problem of telephone fraud in this area. This news article captures the inherent element of conflict. On the one hand, we can see the scammers devising more and more scams to prey on their victims. On the other hand, just inside these walls, police officers work tirelessly to stay one step ahead through strategic operations and ongoing cases. This parallel also highlights the ongoing struggle between deception and justice, which fuels the narrative of the story. It reminds us that the police have a vital role to play in protecting the community from evolving cyber threats. In fact, the Kowloon Regional Police Force has been creating a favorable public perception in the media. Not only are they actively involved in the public media, they have also released a series of self-produced videos on their YouTube channel about how telecom fraud can be prevented, as well as dismantling some of the common telecom fraud tricks. Traditionally, the police have adopted a professional model focusing on reactive law enforcement. However, the theory of community-oriented policing advocates a more proactive and collaborative approach between the police and the public. The Crime Kowloon Regional Headquarters directly protects the welfare of the community in the process of combating crime, in line with the problem-solving principle in community-oriented policing. When we talk around Crime Kowloon Regional Headquarters, we can also feel that a police station separated by a flyover has formed a good interactive relationship with the neighborhood residents playing in the park. Close cooperation with the local population not only gives the police a more three-dimensional image, but also further strengthens the bond of trust between the police and the public's understanding of local crime patterns. According to the concept of fear of crime, the media often shapes misleading views about dangerous places. They take advantage of the cultural proximity to make telephone fraud incidents seem relevant to every Hong Kong citizen. So, the Hong Kong media is intentionally portraying Huang Daxian as a scary area full of fraud and crime, even though the actual data does not support such a claim. It is unfortunate how the media shapes these stereotypes about the district. The same group of people may be victims or suspects. The same elderly people. Class differences can influence the viewer's perception of the victim, and the police can be both professional and efficient in dealing with the problem of wire fraud cases, as well as deeply involved in the community and keeping people safe. The media shapes people's stereotypes, which have the potential to be the opposite of the truth. Only by shedding stereotypes can the public have a clear understanding of the nature of wire fraud and support the policy in combating such offenses in accord with the law.